What you love will destroy you. I suppose I could have put what you love may destroy you, but in truth it's more likely that it will rather than not. The place to start with this, I think, is to just say what love is. We have the Hollywood versions of love, of course, and the spiritual versions of love. The Hollywood version is a kind of, I suppose, obsession, a kind of infatuation. The spiritual version of love is a little badge that you can put up there. It says, I'm a loving person, or something like that. Or, I believe in universal love. Love will make everything okay. Love makes the world go round. The world is united in love. Any kind of number of platitudes you want. So let me offer a kind of practical definition of love, which I've mentioned before in podcasts, but it's useful to remind ourselves. We love something when it gives us pleasure. That's it. So, if your brother or sister is a bully, it's unlikely that you will love them because they bring you pain. But if your mummy brings you ice cream, you probably love her because she's bringing you pleasure. And if she's nurturing and caring and all that stuff, you will love her because she's bringing you pleasure. I'll have a lot more to say about that in a bit, actually, because this whole thing of families and children and love and all the rest of it is actually very often fairly ugly stuff. I mean, not a lot of people talk about it, but there's a lot of vested interest in the idea of the atomic family. Anyway, so remember that. You love something if it gives you pleasure. Now, that in itself is not a simple statement, because pleasure is itself an enhanced state of being, enhanced survival or enhanced procreation prospects. Because that's basically all we're interested in as animals, and we largely are animals. We're interested in procreation and eating, in the main. But anything that raises our survival prospects, like some good food, a good friend, a caring mother, or whatever, we will love because it gives us pleasure. Pleasure is that enhanced state of being. Personally, I have no patience or interest in people who, I don't know what you call it, experience spiritual love. Go do that stuff if you want. Doesn't help one little bit with understanding the world and yourself. So remember that. We love the things that give us pleasure, and the things that give us pleasure are the things that enhance our state of being. Simple as that. You will not get lost in all the romanticism of Hollywood or all the woo-woo of spiritual talk if you remember that. Simple. No simple definitions. So, types of love. Well, kind of obvious things. Food. We love food. It brings us pleasure. If you don't believe that, then just simply don't eat for 2 days. And then the most dry crust of bread will seem like a feast to you after you haven't eaten for a few days. We love food. Some people love it too much. So because it brings pleasure, they keep stuffing things down their throat. More food than the body needs. Again, it's kind of, human beings have the mechanisms that normally operate in nature have kind of got a bit screwed up with human beings. So food brings pleasure, therefore eat more and more and more and more food, even to the point of nausea. So that's a clear case of what you love will or may destroy you. I mean, it may not be food for you, but it probably will be something else. In fact, it will be something else, unless you're a fairly extraordinary person, and I'll get onto that later. It might be nicotine, smoking. It could be alcohol. One of the funniest things I've ever heard, actually, and my estimation of the man went up 100-fold when I heard this. Alan Watts was a heavy drinker. He was also a heavy smoker, actually, but he was a heavy drinker. And he called it spiritual drinking. I can think of lots of things that are spiritual. Spiritual eating, spiritual drinking, spiritual heroin, spiritual, whatever brings you pleasure. Anyway, alcohol kind of loosens people up. There's a kind of feel-good factor for it, although eventually it depresses people, but it loosens people up. They like it. So they do it more and more and more, and they get to the point where basically they can't be in a reasonable state unless they have got half a bottle of vodka down their throat, or drunk half a bottle of vodka. Same with heroin. People who take heroin say it's 1,000 times better than sex. Of course, a pleasure that intense is going to be addictive. So all these things, food, nicotine, alcohol, heroin, all these things we consume could well destroy us. These are the obvious things. I'll get to the more interesting things in a moment. Another thing, I mean, particularly these days with social media, and I get asked over and over and over again, is society breaking down? And the answer is kind of yes, but not in the way people think. The way many people think society is breaking down is that, all these people with guns will start rampaging, and they may do. I'm no fortune teller, but that isn't the breakdown of society. The breakdown of society is things like Facebook and Instagram. You might have seen the news recently that Instagram is very, very bad stuff for is it teenage girls or something like that. It's psychologically harming, but so is Facebook. Nobody now can go to a restaurant without posting it on fucking Facebook. Why? Because, to use the words of Spinoza, they are displaying the power of their body and mind and boring people. Those are pretty much the words of Spinoza. They can't go on holiday without posting it all over Facebook. Why? Because they want to display how wonderfully happy they are to everybody else and make everybody else feel crap. Yeah, there's a podcast all on its own there. But that's where the breakdown of society would take place, not people going around with guns, in my opinion, and I might be wrong. But anyway, the reason for talking about that was love of fame. Everybody, well, not everybody, but many people on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube want to be famous. I'm never going to be famous with this. People don't want to hear about this shit. I'm very happy about that. I get asked over and over again, why haven't you got, tens, hundreds of thousands of followers? Because nobody wants to hear about this. I'm going to try not to swear in this one. Somebody did plead with me to keep the swearing going, but I don't produce these for no one to listen to them, or for YouTube to censor them, because I'm swearing all over the place. Anyway, people are after fame. You put your photograph or a little video up of your cat playing with something that you think is really cute. Everybody else is bored stupid with it, but you think everybody else should appreciate it. So it's this narcissistic tendency which apparently is becoming more and more emphasized in people. Look at me, look at me. Look at the special things I'm doing. Oh God, I've gone to a restaurant. Oh God, I'm at an airport. Oh God, I'm on holiday. Oh God, I'm playing with my cat. Oh look, I'm fooling about with friends. Isn't it hilarious? I don't have a Facebook account. I used to have one. I got so sick of it, I deleted it. Same with Instagram, actually. I tried Instagram and I thought, what a puerile thing. Just couldn't be bothered with it. But fame is the big thing. People are addicted to fame. How many people have I got following me today, this hour, now? How many people have liked this? Yeah, it's just ordinary people, in their homes. A woman might, during the day, might just put some photograph of something she's cooked. Everybody has to appreciate it. Or some guy who's down at the pub. Look at me, way I'm down at the pub. Isn't it amazing? An amazing thing. Everybody wants to be famous. Everybody thinks we should appreciate all their stupid stuff. Anyway, fame is increasingly an addiction, and it destroys people. If you are extremely unlucky, you will get tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers, and then something will happen and you'll lose a load, and it will destroy you, maybe, if you're so identified with the likes and number of followers of whatever it is you're doing. I've got a very, very good quote at the end of this from you know who, Spinoza. He summarizes the whole thing way better than I could summarize it. In fact, why not jump to the last? I haven't done it yet, so I don't know how many minutes it is, but probably about 5 or 10 minutes, and skip me talking about these particulars, although I think the particulars are important. So, for a lot of people, love of power is addictive. That can manifest in a lot of ways. It can manifest as being Mr. Muscle Man. I knew a guy who had to go to the gym for an hour and a half every day, and he was absolutely addicted to the notion that he had to be stronger than everybody else and to be able to beat everybody else in a fight and all the rest of it. It was a vanity thing, but also this power thing. And in the end, he became mentally ill. It destroyed him. But, there are many other kinds of power. To be the big boss man in a large corporation or something like that. If you've ever worked in a corporation, you'll see the kinds of things that people will do to climb up the corporate ladder. Foul things. corporations, large corporations, are images of hell. If you've ever worked in one. So, the sensory things, food, nicotine, alcohol, heroin, they could destroy you. Fame could destroy you if you get addicted to it. Power can destroy you if you get addicted to it, because one minute you are El Supremo, and then the next month you've been displaced by somebody else, and nobody wants to know you anymore. In fact, I know a guy down here that happened to. It destroyed him. He was, I'm not going to give details, he was actually in the press in the UK. But he was a very senior guy in a large corporation. Something happened, and he lost that position and couldn't get another one. He ended up in hospital for alcohol poisoning. Alcohol was his way of trying to get a bit of pleasure in a situation that was quite dire. He'd loved the power. It was taken away, so he needed some other source of pleasure, which for him was alcohol. Some people love a thrill. These guys who jump off the top of tall buildings or mountains wearing a bat suit or something, they get addicted to that. And it doesn't turn out well for some of those people. Down where I live, there's a skydiving centre. It seems every couple of years somebody's parachute doesn't open or something. Never understood it myself, but some people are addicted to that thrill, and it may destroy them. Let's get down to some particulars, because and I'm addressing these particulars because they're controversial. In truth, they're not controversial. What I'm giving here are facts. But in our society, things like family and friends and children, it's kind of holy ground. You don't go onto it. Well, I'm going to trample all over that fucking holy ground now. Oh, there you go. So I've cussed. Another one that's going to be censored. Anyway, so there's the obvious kind of love that most novels and movies are about, which is sexual love. Between a man and a woman, or maybe same sex, I don't really care. I'm not interested in people's sexual preferences. But the thing of infatuation. Infatuation is a very, very bad thing, in reality. So say there's a man or a woman that you become totally infatuated with. What do? You become kind of a bit servile, people-pleasing. No one wants a servile partner. You may think that you want a partner who's going to jump around at your every whim, but you don't want that. Eventually you will hate them. The reasons why you'll hate them, I'll state them very briefly. Someone who's servile is a reminder of someone who's weak. Weakness is not something you want to be reminded of. You want to be reminded of strength, because weakness smells of poor survivability. So really no one wants a servile partner because they're a weak person. So what happens is that the servile partner becomes hated. And eventually may be destroyed. In the sense of, you can imagine if somebody's servile, this is very, very common, more common than you think. And it can be men or women who become servile. They forego all their own needs and wants and try to satisfy an increasingly dissatisfied partner. The partner's dissatisfied because they're dealing with someone who reminds them of weakness, so they grow to hate them more. And so the servile partner tries harder and harder to please them, and eventually becomes destroyed as a person. Maybe not, their life, but as a person with some integrity, they become destroyed. So this thing of obsessive or intense love is extremely dangerous, and in a relationship is almost certain to lead to some kind of hatred and destruction of the person who's in the weak position, that's wanting to please the other one. I've seen it many times. If somebody said, "Oh, this doesn't happen," I wouldn't even argue with them. Don't know what they're talking about. Love, in the sense of pleasure being in the sense of enhanced survival, this love between man and woman is a very, very dangerous thing, and it leads to a lot of unhappiness. There's a whole podcast on its own there, but I'm just going through examples of how the things you love, sensual things like food and nicotine and alcohol and so on, and things like fame and power, and also sexual love, very often destroy people. Family can destroy a person, very often does destroy people. There are lots of ways it can happen. So if you're a child who's continually put down by mother or father, or maybe both, God help you if it's both, you'll grow up destroyed. There'll be nothing in you that's confident or assertive. But it can happen that the mother or father is picked upon by the other parent and the kids. Very often parents will align themselves with the kids, make themselves their buddies, and the kids become like a battleground, and whoever can bestow the most favors on the kids becomes the kid's favorite parent, and then they can all align themselves against the other parent. Very common. Families where the people involved have no skills are kind of like psychological torture chambers. Now, an area that I know something about, because I know someone who works in this area, and also someone quite close to me is working with people in what I'm just going to talk about. It's increasingly the case. I mean, as parents love their children. They can't help it. From a evolutionary psychology point of view, the love is very, very self-interested. It's, I want my genes to survive. So I'll do everything I can to assist this child of mine thrive in life. But it's increasingly the case that parents are being rejected by their children. So, how does this happen? Well, there are a number of ways it happens. I've mentioned one of them. One parent sort of giving the kids everything they want. They become the kid's buddy, and then the other parent just becomes the enemy. So it can happen that way. But the other way it can happen is that if a parent is weak, if little Johnny gets whatever little Johnny wants, and even little Johnny tying his shoelaces is a cause for praise or something, the child will see this as weakness. The child doesn't want a weak parent, it wants a strong parent. A strong parent is a demonstration of strength, of survivability in life. It doesn't want to see some cowering, people-pleasing type parent. It's weakness. The child will grow to hate that parent and will probably want to have nothing to do with it when he gets older. I know a woman who quite recently has, she's had an ongoing situation with her son for years. She sends her son birthday cards and Christmas cards and tries to phone him and so on. The son doesn't want to know. He's totally abandoned this mother, this clinging mother. She went for some counselling and she got the best advice that anybody could have given her. Basically, tell your son to fuck off. And all of a sudden she's strong. Her son hasn't come back to her as of yet. This is all quite recent. But no, she's not going to send him the cards anymore and all the rest of it. And if the son phones up and wants money, no, get your own bloody money or whatever. He will experience strength and he'll come to respect her. And maybe, because strength is kind of addictive, maybe he'll see strength and want to see more of it, instead of this people-pleasing, please love me, clinging mother. So it doesn't matter what you love, in the ordinary sense of the word, just, these mechanical attachments we have and identifications. It will probably destroy you in some way or other. I've experienced that in my life. Everybody experiences it. Most people are not honest enough to talk about it because they're so heavily invested in their marriage or their business or something. Somebody in a business who loves money and just wants to make more and more money will not tell you that, 2 years ago they had a heart attack because they're so stressed out about it. Most people don't display that level of honesty, so you won't get it from them. But let's go through this Spinoza quote. This is from his Improvement of the Understanding. Something absolutely packed with wisdom. Some of it quite ruthless, actually. You don't need to go to Eastern stuff that we barely understand because we don't have that culture, and a lot of which is nonsense anyway, because in the East they never did divorce philosophy from religion. Anyway, that's another story. So, here Spinoza's talking about the nature of love. Remember, love is, we love things that bring us pleasure. And the things that bring us pleasure are the things that enhance our survivability, really. For there are numerous examples of men who have suffered persecution unto death because of their wealth. Well, these days, you would say they've suffered heart attacks, stress, anxiety, bankruptcy, whatever. Numerous men who have suffered all those things because of their wealth, in their attempts to get wealth. And also of men who have exposed themselves to so many dangers to acquire riches that they have finally paid for their folly with their lives. In his day, people would go on expeditions to somewhere or other to collect spices or something and pay for it with their life. These days, it's more the kind of thing I've been talking about. Bankruptcy, financial stress, illness, making yourself ill because of stress, anxiety. Nor are there less numerous examples of men who, to gain or preserve honor, think fame, to gain or to preserve fame, have suffered a most wretched fate. If you go chasing after fame, you have to acknowledge that that fame may go one day and you will suffer for it. Finally, there are innumerable examples of men who have hastened their death by reason of excessive sensual pleasure. There's a lot of that. Overweight people with diabetes when they're 20 years old. People who know nothing else other than stuffing food into their faces, consuming beer, alcohol and whatever. Because they're basically unhappy. If you're unhappy, you will go seeking pleasure. So let's continue with this. These evils, moreover, seem to arise from this, that all happiness or unhappiness depends solely on the quality of the object to which we are bound by love. The very thing I've been talking about. So if you're bound to a person, to food, to alcohol, to fame, whatever, the quality of that thing that you're bound to will determine your happiness or unhappiness. So I'll read it again. These evils, moreover, seem to arise from this, that all happiness or unhappiness depends solely on the object of the quality to which we are bound by love. For strife will never arise on account of that which is not loved. There will be no sorrow if it is lost, no envy if it is possessed by another, no fear, no hatred, in a word, no emotional agitation, all of which, however, occur in the case of the love of perishable things. You could think you're reading a Buddhist text. As I say, we don't particularly need stuff from the East. The Western philosophers have a more digestible version, I suppose, of most of the things that the Eastern philosophers, well, there were no philosophers, they're all religious people from the East. So, all of which, however, occur in the case of the love of perishable things. Unfortunately, it's very hard to live a life without loving perishable things. People, pets, if my little dog dies, I'm very attached to him, I will suffer. And obviously the case with my partner. What else? What material things do I? Yeah, I don't like to get scratches on the lens of my sunglasses. Occur in the case of love of perishable things, such as those of which we have been speaking. But love towards a thing eternal and infinite feeds the mind with joy alone, unmixed with any sadness. What on earth is eternal and infinite? Well, another podcast, but very briefly. What is eternal and infinite is existence itself. I'm not going to go into all of that now. But there is one thing for us practically that we can love that does not destroy, actually strengthens, and that is a love of understanding ourselves. Number one, to love ourselves, to understand ourselves, and to understand the world. Because the more you understand these things, the more rewarding your life becomes. Because you understand what's going on. So, the motto of the story is, of course, be very careful of what you love. Although, for most of us, we just fall in head first with a sexual partner, with some business opportunity, with a taste of some drug, with maybe smoking or whatever. We just kind of fall into it, and then we're stuffed. We're addicted, and these things will destroy us. And even your family will destroy you, and even your lover will destroy you, and even your children will destroy you. That's far less rare than you think. So, there you go. It's up to you. Become a totally selfish bastard. And focus on understanding yourself and your life. And then you might find that life is, not such an arduous and possibly unpleasant affair.